The Inter-ministerial task team led by Dr Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma in the Northwest briefed the media in Lichtenburg yesterday. The team also plans on visiting a few municipalities while in the province this week to assess the state of affairs. Meanwhile, members of the National Education, Health and Allied Workers Union, NEHAWU, marched to the Provincial Legislature and Health Minister Aaron Motsoaledi accepted their list of demands. Dr Piet Croucamp, a political analyst from the University of the Northwest, is here to give us a little bit more perspective. Good to see you. Thanks so much for coming in. All right, so yesterday's briefing, I'm not sure it shed any more light than what we already do know. Did you get anything more out of the briefing?
Well, I think the Minister was tentative for a good reason, and that is, I think one of the points that she made was that she will now go back to Cabinet, because Cabinet will really be involved all the way in this process, which is a complicated process. And then each minister will actually decide whether they should apply Section 101A or 101B in terms of the intervention. One can imagine that with Health Department, which is completely in tatters, that the minister will get the responsibilities of 1B, which means that he can actually take over the complete department. Which is the health
in Northwest has completely been taken over.
That includes the MEC, as the functions of the MEC as well as departmental officials can take it completely over. Then there might be other departments who are perhaps less, in trouble, and then the minister may apply 1A. And 1A means that there's a cooperation agreement between the MEC and the officials in the department and, say, for instance, the minister at national level. So the idea is that it's still possible to cooperate. It's still possible to cooperate. They will do it together. In 1A, it says very specifically that they will do it together. 1B says the minister at national level will take it over completely.
All right. So it's good to know the differences between the two of them and see. So that's all yet to be determined. We do know health is under 1B, so that is a complete takeover because it's a shambles.
We expect it to be. There was no announcement about it yet.
It still has not been announced as yet. So
all this have to be announced. And she said she will go back to Cabinet now, and then they will make that determination which department has to be taken over in terms of 1A or 1B.
Okay, so administratively, how will it work? I mean, if you can outline the procedure and what kind of happens after the 180 days?
Well, first of all, each minister may decide its own process depending on the state of that particular department. And also you will see, because NEHAWU is directly involved in what happens in the health department, for instance, she will consult widely again with, amongst others, with that particular department. Or the minister, Aaron Motsoaledi, will consult directly with all the stakeholders. One of the ways that they imagine they can stabilize the province is if they can get the EFF and NEHAWU, or the worker unions, or the Communist Party, all the different stakeholders who really made a big fuss about what's going on in the department to be involved in the process. That's going to evolve over the next few weeks. Your second question was?
What happens after 180 days?
Look at this. As long as the executive has consulted with the National Council of Provinces, it can really go on long after the 180 days. It can go on for years. In fact, there's a piece of legislation which has to do with monitoring and evaluation, which allows for the national executive to be involved in the province as long as they consult the National Council of Provinces for 3, 4, 5 years. It's quite possible that it can go on for much longer than 180 days.
It's actually it's very disheartening to see how a province can get to a situation like this. And then my question to you is, how is this allowed? How did it get to this point, and how did it get to such a dire situation that we now find ourselves in? Was there abuse of funds and the breakdown of services so overt? I mean, we've seen the people of the Northwest talking out about this, but nothing was done. How did this happen?
Well, one of the things that the minister said yesterday, Dlamini-Zuma, is that she will also investigate municipalities. And one of the reasons why these municipalities will be investigated is because most of them has taken some of their operating funds and put it in a particular bank. And somebody must have given them that order. It's not possible for all these municipalities to take all their money or much of their money and put it in a particular bank without somebody higher up to give them that particular authority to do that. And many of these municipalities have now lost that money, and they're now virtually bankrupt because they lost their operating money. So the other thing that the minister yesterday said is that the security cluster in Cabinet will be involved in this process, and if it is necessary to prosecute anybody, they will go after that particular person. I can imagine that somebody like Superman Mopelo must be very nervous about what will be unearthed during this process. But not only him, many members of the Provincial Executive Committee of the ANC seem to be very concerned about what might be unearthed during this process. But it looks like they want a complete cleanup, but they have to start really just at the Auditor General's report. The annual report of the Auditor General will tell you a lot about where the corruption is, and it even mentions names of individuals that are involved in mismanagement of the province. So it's not a very complicated process, but they will have to do it very thoroughly to ensure that the existing divisions don't polarize as a consequence of the investigation.
When you say somebody higher up for these municipalities taking orders from, are you talking at a premier level, or are you talking at an even higher level, at more of a national government level?
Well, I think it could be very local too. It could involve the Provincial Executive Committee of the ANC, in that, because it seems like they rule that province with an iron hand. Together with Supra, remember, he's the chairperson of that committee.
Yeah.
It seems like they manage that province with an iron hand. They decide who will be MECs. They decide who will be important bureaucrats in the province. They decide to some degree how the money will be spent in that province. I think if you really want to go to the core of the rot, just go to the Provincial Executive Committee, because they are also the ones who resisted the takeover from national government and the resignation of Superman Mopelo.
As we wrap up, my question again has to be, how can the Premier still be the Premier? I know that he's on leave at the moment, full pay, but he's still in this position, in a very powerful position in a way, and still perhaps playing the chess game. But how is it possible that he hasn't been removed?
Well, the thing is, he can only be removed by his own legislature. The PEC can't remove him, the ANC can't remove him from central level, the NEC doesn't have that right unless they recall him as a member of the party.
Yeah.
But nobody can remove him except for his own legislature. And many of the people sitting there, they have been informed. They don't want him to go because it's been the PEC has appointed many of them to that particular position that they are in the legislature, and he controls the PEC again.
Sure. All right. Well, this is a story that we're watching, following very closely, and there are lots of developments in this one. We just hope that it's more important that the people in the province regain.
That's going to take a long time.
And
it's
that's
not going
the
to be
problem.
soon, yeah.
I mean, you say this could take years.
Yeah, it could take years. Look, the Northwest Province is not in a worse state than the Eastern Cape, for instance. It's not in a worse state than many parts of KwaZulu-Natal. That's why it's so strange that the focus is on Supra, and that he claims that he might be the victim of a political intervention. Because it is true that many provinces are in exactly the same state as the Northwest Province. Yeah. They're all dilapidated, they all have all bad management system, they're all thoroughly corrupt. Many municipalities in many other provinces have invested in a particular bank where they lost most of their money, which led to them not being able to provide the most basic of services.
All right, Dr. Piet Croucamp from the University of the Northwest explaining some of the political and administrative procedures to be followed as the national government takes over the province, but also alluding to the fact that certainly the Northwest is not the isolated story here in South Africa. Many other municipalities and provinces in the same situation. All right, let's take a break. When we return,